You just saved my life, and I don't even know what to call you.
Scarlet Spider.
No, your real name.
I don't have one. I can never take off my mask. You won't like what you see.
Oh, don't be silly. All I see is a good man. How about we call you Ben? Yes, I think that fits.
Maybe it does.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Doors. Prepare for Prattle.
Welcome to A Clone in the Dark, a podcast that attempts to untangle the dark web that enshrouds the Clone Saga's most divisive character, Ben Reilly. I'm your co-host, Spider-Dan, and I'm joined by the Clone Tones, Tony Farina and Tony Holt Jr., to make some, if any, sense of Marvel's most controversial and convoluted storyline. It has been a long time coming. Me and Tony Farina did the original Clone Saga. I think it was was it 2 or 3 years ago now? I think
it was 3. I mean, I don't know. It feels like a while. But I mean, I went back, I went back and re-listened. We sounded great. You looked handsome that day.
I mean, I still do. I still do.
I mean, right.
I'm maintaining well.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, no, it was a great time. Yeah.
Yes, so if you are unfamiliar, the real Clone Saga, or the 70s one that kicked the 90s one off, it started in the 70s, so go back and listen to that podcast. I will link it. It has all the references and all the continuity bits that I'm sure we'll go over again before we go headlong into the 90s version. But we're not alone here. Tony Farina is joined by another Tony, just as well-educated, just as charismatic as Tony Farina himself. We're joined by Tony Holt Jr., another Spider-Man fan, another educator, a hero all unto his own. Tony, welcome.
You're too kind.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to our show, all of you. We are strapping in for this long haul to figure out what the hell happened to Spider-Man and what happened going forward, what happened in the bullpen, in the creative sphere, how it's linked to the Age of Apocalypse, how it's not linked. There's a lot to talk about, but mostly about Ben Reilly, who is one of my favorite characters, a controversial character, to say the least. So I asked Tony Farina about his experience with the Clone Saga and the character. What is your experience, Tony Holt Jr.?
I found my way to Ben Reilly, who I am also a huge fan. I found my way to Ben Reilly and the Scarlet Spider through The New Warriors, another one of Marvel's 90s comics super team. Back in the day, I used to be a single issues man. Me and Pops would go to the bookstore. I'd peruse all the racks. There was this giant bookstore in Detroit that just had boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of comics. And one of the early comic books I had, one of the early black heroes I learned about was Night Thrasher. Dude in Tony Stark-like armor with 2 battle batons and a skateboard. I was hooked. Then I got into the New Warriors, and then, as you may or may not know, throughout, I think it was kind of the early in the New Warriors series, the Scarlet Spider shows up as the new guy in town joining the new teenage hero super team. That's when I first met Ben Parker and saw... I honestly didn't know what I was seeing. I thought it was just a Spider-Man in a different costume, but I immediately fell in love with that costume. It had the cut-off sweatshirt with the all-red suit and the big bangles for the spider for the web slingers.
Yeah,
and then he had the utility belt. He had the 2 utility anklets. I just thought it was just such a different look for Spider-Man. It very much had that 90s hip-hop flair, and I was immediately drawn in. And then when I found out about the Clone Saga, Peter Parker versus Ben Reilly, I just fell into the whole the whole Clone Saga.
Amazing. Yeah, mine isn't too dissimilar. I think I was reading some reprints a few years after with Ben, and one of my friends who I'd just been on a stag do with, or a bachelor party as you guys would call it. What we did was we were swapping stuff and lending things, and he was like, "Oh, this is Scarlet Spider. He's stronger than Spider-Man." I went, "Who's stronger than Spider-Man? Who is this pretender? Who is this? How dare you say that? Give me that book. I'll read that. I'll tell you if he's stronger or not." And yeah, I think it's a much later issue, kind of towards the kind of tail end of kind of the first phase of the Clone Saga. But yeah, I think it's him fighting Despair, and Black Cat's there, and some other characters. So yeah, and that's kind of how I knew to differentiate as well, like what was between what was happening in the comics to what was like happening in the animated series or films or what have you. Was that moment, because I was like, this guy's not in the cartoon, though he would be later on, right at the end of the tail end of the 90s cartoon. But yeah, no, a very, very similar story, I think, to me and to Tony Farina as well. But yes, Tony, we are here to talk about one of your favourite characters, the Jackal. You had a great time with that character.
I do love the Jackal. I think it's first of all, and I just love the balls on these guys, called this guy a Jackal. Like, that's what a Jackal looks like.
Bright green.
Sure. Absolutely. No, I think he's such an interesting character. I love me a mad scientist.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, like time in memoriam, this is something like Robert Louis Stevenson, sort of, Mary Shelley. The mad scientist is such an important character throughout time, and are they misunderstood?
Shakespeare and Prospero, absolutely.
Right,
yes.
Of course, excellent shout out.
I was in the Tempest, I remember.
Right, exactly, and that came up in our Shakespeare adaptation episode, Spider-Man, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so that's an excellent call, Tony. Like, so the mad scientist character is so fascinating because he can be pure evil, he can have good intentions. What is happening, and like so. What I find fascinating about the original iteration of the Jackal, and as we move through it all, like, what is the intention? And I think the books that we're going to talk about today, the Double and the Parker Legacy in particular, trying to understand, like, why clones? What are we doing? Like, what is the reason? And having the conversation about science and where does it fit. And I know these are I understand, like, okay, I'm just going to say it out loud before I start waxing poetical like I do about things. I understand this is Marvel's answer to the death of Superman, right? Yes. They're like, hey, they're eating our lunch over there. What should we do? Yeah. Right. We should do something stupid to Spider-Man. Okay, cool. Right. So I'm just saying, I'm getting out of the way. Now I'm going to go in art for art's sake. So there is still rereading these, like just last night, and I read them. We were, unfortunately, the Gremlins Kaine sabotaged our recording last month. Oh, Kaine!
He's just up there. He's just behind me. He's a bit blurry, but he's up there.
So, but what I would say is, there is, in the most like of there he is. Look at him. Looking great. Wow.
Very nice.
Nice.
Very
I
nice.
like the hair, too. What?
So 90s. Just so 90s.
I know.
Just
After
so
he's done villaining, he's also in, like, a rap metal band. he plays bass in a rap metal band. That's what he does.
100%.
100%. Look at that costume. All you gotta do is just take the face mask off, and he's just like...
Yeah, death metal, and you've got the rap grungy aesthetic of Ben Reilly as well.
I'd go to that show. I'd go to that show.
Yeah,
I'd go to that show.
Ben Reilly and Kaine. Yeah. Ben Reilly versus Kaine. They could get up. They could rap
Sons
battle,
of the Jackal.
Sons of the. Oh my god.
Oh my god. That's perfect. Oh, that's it. That's it.
That's it. That's up.
Well done.
That's the show, everybody. There's nothing else
Good
to
night.
say. Oh my god. Anyway, so yes, that was fantastic. Everything about that was great. So. What I would say is this conversation, there's always a conversation to have about, like, why science? Why do we do science? And, like, even because Peter's a scientist, too, and right, like he and throughout the course of the Clone Saga, all of them in and out, you see Peter and Ben do sciencey things. Like definitely they look in microscopes sometimes, and you're like, oh, how do you know he's a scientist? He can look in a microscope, and that's a very shortcut way to know. But the question is always, and I guess I'll pose this to you guys, because again, I'm not saying like I'm a Jackal apologist, but I do think he's an interesting villain. Not that Kaine's not an interesting villain, or some of and I think when we get to the Lost Years, I've got some thoughts to say about Kaine. But what do you guys make of mad scientist as trope? Do you like it? Is it? I mean, this is the 1990s, which, like you said, it's like, hey, holla back, 1590s. So do we like it? What do you guys think of it? Is it a good trope? What do you feel about the Jackal in general as a bad guy? Is he a bad guy?
That's a tough question. Is he a bad guy in action, if not in deeds? I would say yes, because on its face, his whole even after you get past the longing for Gwen Stacy, who was one of his students, by the way, which is, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a good thing. But, love is love. Love is love, love. We'll leave that alone for now. Even if you get past the inescapable loss that he feels for his lost love, trying to get that back. You can't fault someone for wanting to have their lost love back. But he does it in such a destructive ways that destroys his life, Peter Parker's life, Mary Jane's life. It destroys multiple lives. And then, to add insult to injury, he becomes the Jackal and continues to torment Peter Parker and Ben Reilly ad nauseum until his own demise, which I'm sure we'll talk about the confusions there later on, right? So, yeah, I do think he's a bad guy.
One of many demises he has.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Clone Saga. But more to your point, the trope, the character of the mad scientist. They present such a complex lens through which we can view the world, through the story, the character, the other characters. They're like a multifaceted foil, right? It's like looking through the M'Kron crystal. Just in that one character, you can see so many different shards of reality. You can see the good guy who's trying to advance science and do amazing things with cloning technology, new technology, bringing back lost loves. You can see the passion of the inventor, of the experimenter, of the person who wants to build and grow and change. You can see the maniacal nature of a person so locked in and focused on completing one goal that they lose sight of everything else and of all the pain and suffering that they're causing with such a myopic focus. I think it's a great trope to have. I think it's a great character to use. And the way in which the Jackal is presented, he's not huge. He's not strong. He's not even experimenting on himself. He is experimenting on the world around him, on the people, clones and humans around him, on the psyches of the individuals around them. He's not only is he a scientist, he's part psychologist because he's experimenting with influence and manipulation on a psychological level. So I think the Jackal is a great villain. I think he's a great character, and I think he's just a great way to examine the Clone Saga from a multifaceted perspective.
Couldn't say it better myself. I think we brought the right person on board, Tony. Tony Farina.
Yes,
we brought the right person on board.
Yeah.
In Tony Holt Jr. He's the right man for this job. So yes. Consider yourself part of our new Warriors.
The clone part of the sun.
The newest of the Warriors.
The new Warriors. Yes, the new Warriors.
The new Warriors.
The new
Warriors.
I love
Sons
that,
of the
Tony.
Jackal.
I love that, Tony, because I think it's easy to just have baddie, right? It's easy to just have like Jaggernaut, right? Everybody loves the Jaggernaut. I'm trying the Jaggernaut, bitch.
How are you pronouncing that? Jaggernaut? Jaggernaut?
Yeah.
The Juggernaut.
The Juggernaut.
The Juggernaut.
Juggernaut.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Yes.
So good. Vinnie Jones. So the thing about that, but like it's just like, you know what it is? It's literally a wind-up toy villain. You're like, let's wind him up and let him
Yeah.
go. And there's
The Rhino.
the Rhino. There's plenty
Yeah.
of those. But I do think, and again, I'm going to go crazy because we're talking Spider-Man, so I might as well piss everybody off.
Sure.
In Spider-Man 3, not the forget the funky dancing and whatever. And I don't blame Toby. I now will never blame Toby for anything he did in that movie. Like, he did what he was asked to do. He read the script and said, I will do this
I think
dance.
Spider-Man 3 is arguably the Clone Saga of the films, I'd say.
Well, 100%.
Yeah,
but
good point.
But like when you think about the way that the Sandman is portrayed in that, and then the way that they bring him back in the new Sam Raimi Spider-Verse movie, it's not called Spider-Verse, but it's Sam Raimi's Spider-Verse. Like, he's a sympathetic villain too. Like, his heart is in the right place, and so I think there's a different kind of villain. And I think, Tony, as you point out, like, these mad scientists very rarely are like, I want to be a mad scientist because I want to like invest in crypto.
Yeah.
It's never a scam. The mad scientist is always like, I'm a mad scientist because I want to do something. I'm trying to
I have lofty
outlast
goals.
death. Right. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always right. I mean, going back to Frankenstein, right? Obviously, you're trying to outlast death, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing here. But right, there's always something. I'm bettering humanity. I'm trying to, like you said, Tony, he's trying to get over his own pain. But also, what if he can do this? Can he? And look, I know people who have had their pets cloned.
Oh, Adam, I just talked to the vet, and they had to put Oliver to sleep.
What? He wasn't even that sick.
Oh, I know, but apparently he had some kind of, I don't know, highly infectious canine virus or something, and they had to put him down. It's the law.
Oliver was licking Clara's face this morning.
Don't worry, because I asked the same thing, and the virus is harmless to humans, so she's fine.
But this is going to break your heart, and you know that.
No, it won't. I want you to go down to Repet and get Oliver replaced.
I'm not going to have some freak
Oh,
of science
Adam,
sleep in my
for
daughter's
heaven's
bed.
sakes, it's not
no.
dangerous.
Yes, no. Oliver can live on in our memories.
She's only 8. She won't understand that, honey.
Look, it is the natural process of life. You're born, you live, and you die. She has to learn about it someday.
Yeah, but she doesn't have to learn about it on your birthday.
I really
sweetheart.
appreciate that, honey.
Will you do it?
No.
Thank you,
But I
darling,
won't do
and
it.
Clara, thanks for
No.
Love you.
Listen,
Bye-bye.
Natalie, I just won't.
Double X Charter, your passport to outdoor adventure.
No use fighting. We always win.
Flying you to
Right? So, like, that is the
that's a
thing
thing.
you can
That's
do
true.
now, because you're like, well, it's not my pet. It's not the same Rusty, but now it's Rusty 2 because I used Rusty's clone, Rusty's DNA, and I made a Rusty clone so that I can feel like, and of course it's a different dog with a different everything, but it's the same genetically. And so there is something about, well, that brings comfort to people. That isn't necessarily what I would want to do. I wouldn't necessarily, if I lost a pet, to be like, I wonder if I could just get the exact same pet. Like, that's weird.
And
We
who's
go on the
to
same
say
walks, buddy.
who's to say
Yeah.
they would be, though? Who's to say that they would behave the same?
They
would
won't,
they have the same
of course.
trauma?
Exactly, they
Like-
won't. But there's that. But it brings comfort, and so
Yes.
I do think that's what makes Miles such an interesting villain. And that
Yeah.
you have these people, and when you think of all the Bat villains, depending on whichever verse you're in, the ones that aren't just the Rhino, that aren't just like rampaging maniac, those are better. Legion, right? Why is Legion so cool? Why, because there's a lot of trauma. As you mentioned, there's a lot of trauma going on. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he is an underrated villain. I think I don't think he's a bad. I don't think he's a bad villain, but I think because he is tied to this storyline and people despise this storyline so much that I think he gets kind of sometimes the blame, or certain other characters. I think there's a reluctance to use him again. He's not used for, oh God, maybe 10 years, maybe more. Maybe 20 years before they use him again after this storyline, really. There are moments and characters, and Carrion turns up towards the end of the Clone Saga, so there's elements of him. He has a legacy. But yeah, I agree. I don't think he's a bad villain per se, and again, it's a different take. It's a different version of a Spider-Man villain with a different motivation and stuff. So yeah, and it will become larger and more wide-ranging, and there's a lot of layers and levels to it. And we will get to that, I'm sure. Speaking of decisions from the original Clone Saga, the idea was to shake things up, bring back Gwen Stacy, bring back a Spider-Man clone, reveal this, reveal that. That was controversial at the time. So was this storyline, and it was born from the same idea. It was born from the idea that they need to shake things up. Spider-Man had become very dark, very kind of dour, very depressed. At this point, he was just calling himself the Spider. He was kind of disassociating from Peter Parker because he didn't want to feel hurt or, betrayed or, any of those kind of those weaker emotions. He wanted to be like, I am this elemental creature that will destroy and hunt and eradicate. And I think that comes from J.M. DeMatteis and the way Craven used to speak in that storyline, which he wrote. I think there's a lot of those elements he carries over, and he's one of my favorite Spider-Man writers, in fact, one of the best. But I think there are some of those elements that kind of creep through. And I don't mind a dark Spider-Man story. I've got no issue with dark Spider-Man stories. I think you do have to have those. But at this point, they wanted to hit the kind of reset button. Like, they'd all got married, got mortgages, had kids, and Spider-Man was getting to that point where he was married, had mortgages, and were thinking about having children. And I think what they wanted to do was the Brand New Day idea, which is, hit the blip button and he goes back to being single. He doesn't have weird powers, he's young and hip and cool, and all the kids will jump on the comic book and start reading again. These, much like the 70s and the 60s stories, it's kind of a one-off, adventure that's fun, instead of the kind of like, oh god, I want to kill myself, which again is kind of the back end of the 80s of that kind of Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns kind of thing that was happening to comics. They were trying to get away from that. Unfortunately, I think they spectacularly failed to get away from all the dark, disturbing shit. But there is some elements within this that are a bit more kind of like freak of the week, kind of thing. So yeah, it started off with like, they're throwing ideas around, much like you hear about the death of Superman. Like, why do we do this? Why don't we just kill him? And somebody, I think it was Terry Kavanagh, said, why don't we bring back the clone? And they were like, oh, and J.M. DeMatteis was like, no, I like that idea. Keep going, unravel it. And they started talking about him. This is their reset button, is they could bring back a Peter Parker and say he was a real Peter Parker and him be this light and fun character again. And he would have the memories of the 70s Parker, but didn't have necessarily the baggage, the marriage, the depression, whatever you want to call it, of this current Peter Parker. So they could hit the refresh button and it still be Peter Parker. It still has, this clone or this person is still Peter Parker genetically with most of the memories, and, they can do something with that. And then if they wanted, reverse that. And that was the plan. It was going to be short. It was going to be up until issue 400. They were going to end that storyline. They were going to have a big thing, which, as we know, didn't quite happen. Didn't quite get wrapped up in a nice little bow that we would have wanted. It went longer and more confusing, and a lot of twists and turns with very unique characters being introduced and thrown away. Creative teams. Marvel went through a thing called the Marvolution, which was, I think Toy Biz bought Marvel at the time when it was kind of struggling with bankruptcy. So they wanted to kind of inject things, sell the film rights.
As the CEO of Toy Biz, it's pretty obvious why Avi Arad would have wanted to see lots and lots of Marvel properties get turned into cartoon shows and movies. Their existence, and more importantly their success, meant that he could ramp up his toy sales. And so committed was Avi Arad to this business model that starting in 1996, his toy company, Toy Biz, was instrumental in, quote, saving Marvel Comics from bankruptcy after the comic speculators bubble finally burst in the mid-90s. In the wake of Avi's takeover of the company, his business partner at Toy Biz, a guy named Isaac Perlmutter, became the CEO of Marvel Comics, while Avi created a new role for himself as the CEO of Marvel Studios. And all of this while both men continued to wear their hats as the owners of Toy Biz.
There's a lot of stuff going on at this time, in this period, which
I
has
remember
led...
that.
led to some of these problems. Age of Apocalypse is doing very well, so they were like, well, we have to replace all the books and stretch it out as long as possible because that book's doing really well, so we're going to follow that formula. So there's a lot of problems here, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I think there was 4 or 5 different editors on Spider-Man at this time because there were 4 or 5 different Spider-Man titles. So yeah, again, a lot of big confusion about what to do and how to present it and how to, are fans going to love this? Are fans going to hate it? What's going to be the reaction? Then what do we do if it's a bad, reaction? Do we have a back door? Do we have an exit strategy for this storyline? The answer was no. And every exit strategy they tried, it got worse and worse and worse. And I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go through all these storylines. So I think we should get started. So in these backup issues that we had when we have the main story where Ben is reintroduced, but in the backups of these issues, we have a thing called The Double, or Birth of a Spider-Man. Tony Holt Jr., would you like to give us a kind of brief rundown of these stories? Because they kind of retread what me and Tony kind of did in our original podcast.
Yeah, I guess to keep it kind of simple and plain, the Lost Year Zero, or the Parker years, starts off when they bring when they bring Ben Reilly out of the clone tank. They kind of backtrack a little bit to the last battle between Peter Parker, the Jackal, and Ben Reilly. They show Ben Reilly's supposed death. He wakes up himself thinking, oh, everything's great. Everything's all right. I survived. I'm Peter Parker. I'm going to head home to my wonderful wife, Mary Jane. And then all of a sudden he shows up and there's another Peter Parker in the window with his beautiful wife, Mary Jane. And he has a aneurysm / heart attack / falling off the building screaming, I'm the clone. One of my, I got to say that just as an aside, one of the best scenes across the whole series, one of the best images across that, my heart goes out to you, Ben Reilly. Right then, I'm like, love it.
Because he wants to break in as well. He's like, I'm gonna. He gets his fist to break the window and to go in and go, you're the clone, get off Mary Jane. But is the genetic or psychological time bomb, as the Jackal describes in this story, that he's planted in both Peter Parker and the clone, apparently, are kicking off. So this is brain explodes, falls off the building into the garbage. Amazing scene.
Love that. And then keep me honest here, because that after that scene, he is broken, distraught, sad, slinking in the rain. I also love that scene of him in full Spider-Man gear in front of the grave, just soaked in the rain, not sure what to do. I think he tries multiple times to kill himself, wants to kill himself. I think this is the one where he jumps in front of a truck, wants the truck to hit him. But then all of a sudden, his spider senses actually stop the truck, almost crash the truck, and kills a civilian, which he would have been so much more broken up about, right? And eventually, he kind of gives into the reality that he is the clone. Steals a few things from the original Peter Parker, grabs some clothes, some cash. Which
can you steal from yourself? Is that possible?
Great point. I would say no. Right? It'd be like your brother coming in asking to borrow some clothes from the closet. Of course you're going to say yes.
I think he even says Peter Parker was planning to donate these anyway. So
there you go.
So I'll have them.
So he just takes them, and then he sets off. And do you want me to keep going into the rest of the Lost Years?
So going back a little bit. So we have him come out of the tank. And then we have him basically abused by the Jackal. So he's trying to
That's
reawaken.
part of the double where he's like, it's like very goopy. He comes out of the goop, and again, magic goop. There's no junk. There's lots of nude clones, everybody, but it is very rated PG. There's lots of excellent shadows.
No web shooters on
Spider
screen.
Wang. Nothing, none of that. We don't get any of that because remember when they did in Batman Damned, they did the Batwang and the whole universe broke.
Too controversial.
We're not having any of that.
Too controversial. To have a character with a penis. No, God.
I mean, I don't
Heaven
understand.
forbid.
I mean, later on in this run, Mary Jane is pregnant. So I don't know how
and
that
it must be
happened.
working. Must be working.
Something. So, but anyway,
Something's
so yeah,
working.
so he comes out, and it is very much like, yes, it's honestly, I'll say, of the three that we're covering, the Double, the Parker Legacy, and the Lost Years, the Double is my favorite because it's almost like a psychological horror.
Yes.
And it's short, right? It's only like, it's all backups. It's like four backups.
I want to say 4 issues, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so but combined, it's even like the length of a 1-issue floppy. Because it's just 4 backup stories, like, right? Backups are usually like 8 pages. And I thought, like, and again, this is where you could go like, oh, this is when the Jackal's evil. So this is where, going to where, like, what is a mad scientist? And so you get to this point and you're like, oh, this is how you get the audience against him, because he psychologically terrorizes Ben for 24 pages. And so then when we get to that part, Tony, where he is ready to jump in front of a truck and jump off a building and do all those things. And it's funny, like, you stick to things and you're going to jump off a building. Like, that's the way, I mean, like, again, he's maybe not in his right mind.
Definitely
not. But I think, like, so I found those issues, that the Double issue, really, really interesting, because it sets up where the Jackal is as a monster, because he's not physically in all of his green, with his, like,
no, it's
with
just
his little
Miles
Speedo
Warren
that he's wearing. Yeah,
in a lab coat.
Right, Miles Warren in a lab
on.
coat is no match for Ben Reilly, even drunk Ben Reilly, brand new Ben Reilly, or any Spider, anybody. But the way that you control people, I mean, this again goes back to the Frankenstein's monster thing, right? Of course, the monster, the creature, is obviously more powerful, and that's obviously what happens. And if you've seen the new Frankenstein movie, he also is apparently a superhero and has Wolverine powers in that one.
Yes.
But in this, in the real book too, he's obviously bigger and stronger than Frankenstein. But because he tortures him, because he mentally abuses him, and he runs from him, and he shuns
the power
him,
dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's like a father. You don't go and just punch your father unless they've maybe done something.
And especially when he's so confused and he doesn't know anything, right? So he's mentally weak. So I just found that to be really fascinating. That put us, and I get why Tony Holt's favorite Spider-Man is Ben Reilly. Spider-Man. Ben Spider-Man is his name.
Ben Spider-Man.
Ben Spider-Man. Sorry, it's because he has to overcome so much.
Yeah.
He doesn't have, like, he doesn't get Aunt May. And granted, they fridge Aunt May for this entire, poor Aunt May, she definitely has some bed sores by the time this is over. She is in a bed for like 100 issues of Spider-Man. It's crazy. And I mean, I get it. She's supposed to be old and frail, but good Lord, poor Aunt May. But anyway, Ben, this Peter, he thinks he's Peter. He doesn't even get Aunt May. Like you said, he doesn't get Mary Jane. He does. For a second, he's tantalizing close to Gwen again, and he doesn't get her. And so it's like this whole, like, you break him mentally so that you can best him physically. And I think, and for Ben, then when we see what he does in the Lost Years later, you're like, oh, you overcame that, and that is what makes you heroic more than just being, because he doesn't have the talk with Uncle Ben. Right, he doesn't have the pep talk here. No. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, what I like about this story as well is, my clones crop up in like a lot of science fiction, and my question is, you can clone the body, you can clone the DNA, you can, but how do you clone the mind? Where is the mind? Is it an infant? Is it a toddler now, or is it the same mind and memories and everything that's there? And I think different science fiction stories will tell them in different ways, like, oh, there was a machine that recorded your memory and then we've just encoded it onto the clone or something like that. So I quite like that it's there. It's like a dormant memory. It's like a dormant personality that he has to kind of tease out of Ben. It's because at the moment he's kind of confused, he's childlike, he's hiding, and he's using hypnotherapy, he says, or hypnotism and drugs, psychedelic drugs, to bring that out. So again, we get to see him in pure mad scientist mode. He's using all these different tricks that he has accumulated over his lifetime, genetic engineering and all that. And I think that was really interesting, because he wants him to be Spider-Man at his prowess, so he can beat the Peter Parker Spider-Man later in that story that we read. I think it wasn't issue 150, but it was an issue 140 something. And yeah, so he needs to, even though technically once he remembers who he is, surely he would just defeat the Jackal. But again, he has various tricks and to stop that from happening, to stop him from just, smashing him in. But I do like when he fights back occasionally and like breaks his hand. He's like, he's not quite used to it. And, and Ben doesn't know what the spider sense is, doesn't quite get it. It's kind of an instinctual thing. And, he's climbing up the walls. He doesn't know how this is possible. He knows this is weird and wrong and not human, but he's still doing it. He's like, I love all those kind of that, again, the lost, him feeling like this lost character, this lost person. He's lost not only within the city, within his life, but within himself as well. I think that's one of the best things about that. Like you said, the psychological, Jacob's ladder of it all kind of thing, where it's like all the demons are there, and he's trying to figure out who he is, and he knows that the Jackal is the villain, but he doesn't know that Miles is the villain, which is interesting. Like he sees the costume and he goes, "Oh, you're the bad guy," because he remembers instinctually, almost. Again, in the back of his mind, he remembers that Miles Warren was his friend, was his mentor, his teacher, but the Jackal is the villain. So I like that differentiation as well between those two characters, because he goes for the Jackal. He didn't go for Miles unless he felt he was really, really threatened, which, again, very interesting dynamic that they have. And then it's kind of almost like a prequel in between cool kind of thing, the double. We get to the point where they do have the fight. Interestingly as well, this is one of my continuity notes, is in the story that me and Tony Farina read, Spider-Man dumps the body of the dead clone in this smokestack, quite famously. But in this story, he doesn't awaken in the smokestack. He awakens outside the smokestack, which will be a plot point later on. But before we move on, is there anything else we wanted to say about the double? Do you want to talk about Liam Sharp's artwork? This one's written by J.M. DeMatteis as well. What do we think to the artwork of this? I felt it was a bit Derek Robertson. I don't know if you're familiar with that artist, but his style here, Liam Sharp's style, made me think of that. He did the Boys comic book and Transmetropolitan, I think he did as well.
Space Bastards.
Yeah, I think he did those. Yeah. Do we like this rendition of Spider-Man? Do you like this rendition of the Jackal, Gwen Stacy? What do we think, Mr. Holt? Go on.
I mean, I think it's very much Marvel parlance. I always get caught with the Jackal as to how much the Jackal, the Hobgoblin, and who's the third one? The green one, the Goblin,
Green Goblin.
No. The Green Goblin. I always get caught by how those three end up looking so much alike.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It's like, did they just sleep on the job? Was there one person that was just like, oh no, this is great, let's just keep going with that?
Yeah. Sharp teeth, pointy ears, we've got that down. Yeah,
it's like we could change it up a little. In general, my when it comes to the artwork and the artistry in these series. It's kind of Marvel standard, right?
Yeah, sure.
I am often it doesn't detract from the story. No. I wouldn't necessarily say it moves the story in a new direction or moves the comic in a new direction either. Unlike some other artists in other issues later on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's not bad art. I don't think it's amazing art, but I feel it is very stereotypical kind of 90s fair kind of style art, superhero art at that time. I don't know about you, Mr. Farina.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I think, these are the backup stories too, and there's always something about that. Like, I've talked to people who that was their job. That's how they sort of started. They're like, oh, that's what I did. I did the backup stories. I did whatever. I was doing a backup story in Green Lantern. That used to be much more common. I liked a backup story. Like those old Batmans I would read. There'd be like, meanwhile, Dick Grayson's out traipsing about, and here's what's happening. Meanwhile, Barbara Gordon is doing something cool while Batman. It's supposed to be happening at the same time, and so I think that's a cool. I wish and I wish they did that more now. But it's. it's whatever. That's a whole other. Because I mean, to me, that's an easier way to do a crossover than even this, where it's like you have to get Web of 114, and then you have to go back to Amazing 475, and then you have to go to regular Spider-Man. This you have to go to Spectacular. That you're like, oh, good lord.
You were spending a lot of money on the Clone Saga back in the day.
Correct, absolutely. I think that I like what Sharp is doing here, because again, I think it's and I don't know if he'd penciled and inked or if he had a different inker. I'd have to look, or who did the colors. It may even be the colorist who does a lot of work in this one to get the dark. I do think that the shadows are working. So you never know. Sometimes that they do leave that to the colorist to do the shadows, and sometimes if you're doing just pencils, you leave it to the inker to do that. But I do think that to get that darkness, because this isn't the super heroic. When we move on to especially the Lost Years, that's when it's all very, it's JR, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So, so I like it fine. It does what it does, but I don't know that if it's necessarily him who's necessarily the hero, or if it was the colorist who made this feel, that lived in goopy, texture gross. But again, I'm with you, Tony. It wasn't like, I mean, I'm going to say the name of somebody who's probably one of the greatest Spider-Man artists of all time, but boy, could we not let him write, Mr. Todd McFarlane. It's not that. Like when McFarlane took over Spider-Man, it was a game changer. And then they were like, what if we let him write his own comic book? What if he drew it? And he came up with the story idea, but he let someone else write the dialogue. Wouldn't that be cool? Preach. I know, and who am I to talk to a multi-billionaire? But I'm just saying... You're not. Yeah. I'm just saying. That's all. But anyway, so it's not the most, because to me, right, he's on the Mount Rushmore of Spider-Man. Artist, right?
Yeah. Spaghetti webbing. He invented that.
Yeah, it's just like it was a game changer, and it was like so off the page. And so it's always hard for me to compare. I mean, he is. Yeah. He's my favorite Spider-Man artist.
I remember I really liked the HBO Spawn cartoon, and I used to watch with my friend. And you can choose to have the Todd McFarlane introduction, or you can choose not to have it on the DVD. And he was like, put it on because it's funny. Because he's very nerdy. He's got that, he's an absolute like kind of nerd. But it kind of tonally it was just weird, because then you've got the amazing Keith David coming in with his like gravelly, beautiful voice and like setting the tone, this dark tone. But before you've got, I am Todd McFarlane, and I created Spawn. Let me talk. Do you like baseball cards? Do you like action figures?
Betrayal. It cuts the deepest when the betrayer is someone close, someone you've trusted. The guy you thought was your buddy, in whose hands you would have placed your life. In the case of Al Simmons, the ultimate betrayal was to find himself staring down the barrel of a flamethrower. The guy at the other end pulling the trigger, the guy that he trusted, now smiling as he watched Al burn alive.
It's like... Don't know why I'm Peter Griffin all of a sudden.
Right, it's good
but it was kind of like, he was like, put it on, but it kind of ruins it. But it's kind of entertaining. It almost ruins the cartoon as well. But yes, I have to agree with you both. I think, again, I think it works very well. I think it's the colours are very muted. It's meant to be dark. The tone is dark. Spider-Man's surprisingly, Ben Reilly is surprisingly horny in this as well. Like he's in the tube and he's just like forming as an embryo, and he goes, all of a sudden I know that I was male, and I was like, how does that feel? How does somebody just know that they are male? Like, I am male. I happen to be male, but I don't know if there's a feeling I could pinpoint that goes, I feel like a man. I feel like a male. I have this vigor or verve or something. I was like, okay, good for you. And then the second he sees Gwen, he's like all over her, and he's like, I don't know who I am, but I know I want to kiss you. Strange choices, but there you go. It is what it is. But yeah, the Parker legacy, as Tony was saying, we have him. He's in the garbage. That wonderful image by John Romita Jr., who is again one of my favorite artists. I found him through Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller, which is, it's a big book for me, and I shouldn't have been reading it at my age because it was very adult. But that's kind of what made it special. It had an embossed cover, like a shiny embossed cover, which was, the rage in the 90s. But I kind of like that because, it's almost like Braille. I thought that was quite clever. That was kind of cool. But yeah, so I do have a soft spot for him. Yeah, if he's got a deadline, it's not great, I'll be honest. But when he's on point, he's really, really good. But yeah, we have that wonderful, it got all the water, all the rain just pouring all over him, and again jumps in front of that truck, and he's like, he grabs the guy through the truck. He's like, why didn't you kill me, my life is over. And then, he saves the guy, parks the truck, what have you, and then he goes home, like we said, picks up a few knickknacks, few bits and pieces. He will pick up his Midtown ring as well, which is important for later. He's gonna keep that. It's gonna be one of the keepsakes he has that he walks around from his old life, from his from his real life, maybe you could say. And then he's on this bus. He's traveling, and the weather's bad. And yeah, he meets this guy who's kind of, is a nice guy. He's like a heavy set guy. He's I think he's a salesman of some kind.
I think he's a shoe salesman, in fact.
Yeah, that's it. Cliff, and he had a bad stroke of luck. Financially, is no longer with his wife, no longer with his family. But he's a nice guy. He's like, hey, let's chat, let's have a drink, let's do this. And Ben's like, my life is over. Don't talk to me. Don't you ever talk to me. This is horrible. Like, and you're really annoying as well. I just want to sleep. And he's like, very chatty, and again, harmless guy. And then Spider-Man doesn't drink. Quite famously, doesn't drink. Like, he's not. You could say what kind of religion he is, but he definitely doesn't drink. He 100% does not drink. So now that his life's over, he feels like he can drink. He feels like he can. It doesn't matter, and he starts kind of having his mental breakdown, so to speak. After having, he's only had a little bit as well. He said it's gone right to his head, and he's like, you've only had one drink. He's like, Brah! He's breaking guys, smashing things, throwing bottles around, breaking guys' wrists. And he's like, really very intense, very angry. Again, very 90s, very John Romita Jr. A lot of smashing glass and everything. And then he says, he says to Cliff, like, you don't matter, I don't matter, none of this matters, your life doesn't matter. And then he wakes up in the morning, or he goes back to his room, and then his spider sense goes off, and he jumps in the room, kicks the door down, and finds Cliff about to kill himself. He's got a gun, he's somehow got a hold of a gun, he's about to kill himself. Throws the gun away and says, why did you stop me? Why, you said I was worth nothing. And he was like, I was wrong. I was wrong. You mean something. This is a fresh start. You can build something better. You can have your own life. This is it's a new chapter. And he realizes he's kind of talking about himself as well, which again, very powerful, very strong. And we see the kind of the path he is now going to go on to. And again, it's a kind of a nice setup for this Lost Years story coming forward and into that. But what did we think of the Parker legacy? We've got John Romita Jr. on the art, and we're seeing more of that kind of tortured, fragmented, his life, what he's been through. Sometimes I do think that they kind of hit the hammer over the head too much sometimes with this. Like, I'm not Spider-Man, I don't have the responsibility, it's not me, I can go and live my life, and I shouldn't put on the costume, and I shouldn't do this. There is a lot of that, and that is a kind of repetitive theme, but it kind of fits. But sometimes I do get a little bit sick of it. But here early on, I was here for it, I think. Don't know about you.
Yeah. I would agree. I actually, of all of the parts of the Clone Saga, I really, really like the setup. I really like that whole pivotal scene where he's on the bus, in the bar, saving Cliff's life. Like, that whole setup, especially the part where he is so visibly struggling with the great power, great responsibility argument. I think that's a great setup. I think it's such a pivotal moment when he goes from being drunk and crazy in the bar after one drink, knocking people out, saying the world doesn't matter, to just jumping right back in and saving this guy's life instinctually. And then giving the advice that we should all take ourselves. Like, that whole scene for me is like, wow, that really is the core of Ben Reilly. And and I agree, they do hit it over the head, but it works for me every time. Every time I see Ben struggle with who he really is, struggling with his desire versus his nature, with what he wants versus who he is. I feel like that's quintessential Ben Reilly. And that's part of why I love him. So that whole setup is big for me, especially the running from your problems part, right? I get it. They have to take him somewhere else. He has to cut across country. You can't. If I found my clone, I wouldn't want to be in the same city, state, time zone either, right? I get that part. But the whole time where he starts the trip and he's just trying to run from everything to the very end where he's still leaving town, but it almost sets it up like he's driving to, or he's traveling to the person he will become, to becoming Ben Reilly. I thought that was just I thought that was well played. I thought that was well played.
Tony Farina.
Yes, sir. And I think all yes to everything Tony Holt says. And I'll do the yes and we'll play some improv games, as these shows are. But this is the moment and everything. This is when Ben Reilly gets his name. He's unnamed to this point. He's called the Double, and then it's called the Parker Legacy. And so it's at the end of the Parker Legacy, sort of like just before he gets on the bus, when he realizes, because like you said, after he saves Cliff and does everything, you're right. All that's true. Like, this is that moment. Now, our lost friend, Steve J. Ray loved that guy. You know, we miss him, but he loved the Rick Grayson storyline. I'm just going to go to Nightwing for just 1 second. I hated the Rick Grayson storyline. I was like, no, he's not Rick Grayson. Don't do that. Like, I'm sorry. He lost his, like, okay, I get it. He lost his memory, whatever. They were trying to do something. I get it. But Steve-O's thing was, the reason he loved the Rick Grayson storyline is because while he's not Nightwing and he doesn't know Bruce and he doesn't know anything, he doesn't know Babs, he's still a hero. He's just like a cab driver who still wants to help people because it's his true, because he, the beating heart of the DC universe, Nightwing, is still in Rick Grayson. So I was like, all right, I will give it to you. And so here, you know, like, so that is the same thing here. Like, that is what you're saying, Tony, is like the Ben Reilly in the beating heart of the Spider-Man is Ben, right? Is Ben Parker. And so, but we always think about the power and responsibility speech coming from Uncle Ben. You know, the one thing that I think that, spoiler alert for when what happens in the Spider-Man movie, he gets it from Aunt May. And I think that's super important. And what we see in this moment, and the reason in that moment he saves Cliff, he's going to go getting on, and he decides he isn't going to become Ben Parker. Right? He isn't going to become Peter Parker. He's going to become Ben Reilly. He's going to acknowledge these humans, not his parents, not Miles Warren, not his parents, the people who raised him, the people who show him. So Ben gives him the speech, but May's the one who gives him his life. He is who he is because of her. You know, like, she still raised him. She goes on. She gives her whole life to him. And so I think picking that name, it's such a powerful, amazing moment where he's like, that's how you know he is going to be this guy. He's going to be the best of them. And when you said it earlier, and I don't know if this was off mic or no, you said it on mic, Dan, he's stronger than Spider-Man. Well, right, like, because of this, because it's a choice. It has
to be, and and emotionally,
this is that moment. Yeah,
because he's lost everything. We're talking about the lost years. He has lost everything. It's not that Spider-Man's gone away. Well, it's a double meaning, but he has lost everything, yet is still that hero, still deep down, no matter how hard it's gotten, no matter how depressed he is, no matter what he has sacrificed to, again, he's gotten away because he doesn't want to interrupt Peter's life and disrupt everyone else in their lives. He knows he needs to get away. Continuity-wise, we need to get him away from New York anyway, because, again, he has been gone for a significant amount of time. Technically, 3 years with Marvel's sliding timescale, not the 70s,
20 years,
not 20 years, but 3 years ish, however long they want to do it. But yeah, so he is still that person, deep down, and he does want he's human, he does want, his karmic balance. He wants some of that back, but by being who he is and by giving what he gives, he shows us who exactly he is. And he is Spider-Man. He is Peter Parker, whatever you want to call it. But he, is holding on to that Parker legacy. Like you said, Ben, the Uncle Ben, the Aunt May, we see them in the clouds and he goes, right, I'm going to honor them as best I can and be, while still, dancing between the raindrops of not being Spider-Man. I'm going to try and be the best person I can be, given what I have at the moment, the skills and what I can do. And my, we see him in the next book kind of giving some false teaching credits, I think we see. So he's like, these aren't real, but we'll use them. Yeah, I feel bad about lying. But yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, just a short little story. Again, there's not, it's not this big, overarching, big epic or battle or anything. It's just it doesn't have a big villain in it or anything. It's just a small little arc which tells us exactly what we need to know about Ben moving forward. I should have said this up top. We are going in a chronological order. So technically, we would have heard, Ben's name in the current timeline, the current continuity. These are stories in the past that are being told retroactively. Some of these are printed much further down the line, but we're reading them in a chronological order because we thought that would be best. But yes, next up we have Spider-Man: The Lost Years, which was a graphic novel I had as a child, and I really, really remember this quite fondly. This, again, John Romita Jr. I was like, oh, yeah, I like him, know him, see that name, recognize him. Spider-Man, yes, good. Clones, sure. And again, a very adult story, a very intense, dark, disturbing in some cases story. Not a lot of red and blue tights or supervillains, flights of fancy. This is a kind of a grim and gritty Avenger, vigilante kind of story. Tony Farina, why don't you tell us a little bit about the plot for The Lost Years?
So The Lost Years, where you go when you're thinking like, I need action, I need adventure, I need Salt Lake City. Oh man,
Mormon Central, baby. Mormon Central.
Mormons after dark, baby.
They know how to party.
Dark. So what happens is Ben is just living his life. I mean, honestly, if you're going to go get lost and you're just like a random average white guy, there is no better place to just blend in than Salt Lake City. I've been there, and that is like, hey, look at all these average looking white guys. Yes, Salt Lake City. So
I'm the most average of them all.
Right.
Nothing spectacular about me, sensational, amazing, or otherwise.
Web of nothing.
Yeah, get rid of all my adjectives.
But so anyway, so Ben's just out there trying to live his life and whatever. And meanwhile, and this is where I'll get into. I'll try not to do the commentary. Anyway, Kaine shows up. Mm-hmm. Wackiness ensues. There's this is a very noir story. It's very. I actually think, and okay, so I can't talk about it and not talk about it. Like John Romita Jr. did Born Again, as you said, my favorite Daredevil story of all time. That is maybe my favorite Frank Miller story of all time.
Man Without Fear. I think I might have said Born Again, but Man Without Fear.
Yeah,
Mazzucchelli does Born Again.
Does Born Again, right? Man Without Fear. But I actually like the Parker legacy stuff. There's something about this where it's like he's at this stage of his life where he's like, and he doesn't ink this one. He just pencils it. So there's a lot of disconnected lines. And this story, I was like, wait, were they doing a Wolverine Sabretooth story and it ended up in a Spider-Man story? Because the way that...
yeah, I can see that.
And so that is my biggest issue out reading this was like, oh my God, this is literally Angry Brothers. One of them with a bad beard and long flowy hair, and then there's a lot of bubs and fighting in bars and people. There's like a mobster, the great mobster Jimmy the Mouth of Great Salt Lake, and so there's like this extra noir story underneath it. So it is a lot crammed into 3 issues. There's a lot going on. So anyway, there's just something that's disconcerting about JR's art in this third one. In the middle one, it was fine, but there was just something. And you sort of said it. Maybe he was up against a deadline, which I guess at least he was like, "Hey, I hit the deadline." Unlike Jim Lee, who's like, "I'll get to it when I do." It may take 7 years for me to finish that next issue. So, I mean, at least Romita's like, I'll give you something.
Sure.
So I guess something's better than we're still waiting on the next, Hush 2 for 17 years. So,
same with Kevin Smith, I think. He tends to start comics and not finish them.
Correct. Yeah, and there's lots of people who have done that throughout time. Jeff Johns, right? We're still waiting for that, for the Rebirth Shazam issue 8 or something, right? Like, so I understand. But anyway, I do think this is a really interesting story. I am torn. So that's the plot. The two brothers fight. If you didn't know that Kaine was the first clone, you are really in trouble. But so this happens chronologically, but a lot is revealed in this. So the fact that it comes later, it's important to note that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Because the narration, the narration is the characters looking back. So from the modern timeline, they are looking back at their past and going, what if I'd said this? What if I did this? This is what happened. I felt this way. You know, it's all in past tense. So there's things that are revealed within this, and there's continuity and current stories they're telling, while still trying to tell this story. And I think as much as I enjoy it, I think there is some problems, especially when it comes to the end of the book, where they have to cram in a lot of detail very quickly, a lot of continuity notes, like. And for some reason, why 3 issues as well? It feels weird to me. It was
weird, right? It
feels weird to me. It feels like they went, we'll have a 4-issue miniseries. Oh, we don't want to spend money on it. Let's cramp it. Let's push it into just 3 issues really quickly, right at the end. Let's get all that detail in at the end. That was my main criticism, I think, of the book. I think the characters are... Yeah, it goes fast. I think the characters are good. They're interesting. There's, there's a lot of kind of sex and violence, if you're into that, in your Spider-Man stories. It's very dark, and I like the kind of, vigilante kind of... Again, it is very, Daredevil, the man without fear. He wears a makeshift vigilante outfit in that, and so does Ben in this.
He definitely does here, 100%.
Yeah. So
I love that outfit.
Oh yeah, it looks great. I think there's some great shots of him, like and without his web shooters and stuff. But yeah, I think there was a thing as well, like the mob boss who's in prison, who's trying to get revenge on Jacob Raven, and he has a twin, and I was like, and then
Twins
I was like,
clones.
Yeah, and I missed that, and then I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because it was like one page, and they just like, oh yeah, I'm actually the twin of this guy. This guy is actually still in prison. But I thought maybe they were trying to do something with the parallel of them being clones, but then they did nothing with it, and then one of them dies. And I was like, well, what was the point? You might as well just had the guy come out of the prison and just be out of the prison, like, because he has all this control and, he can buy people off and stuff. But yeah, again, that just felt like it was just kind of thrown away at the end. But overall, I like the I think it's Louise Kennedy. I think is the police officer who falls in love with Kaine.
Character.
Yeah. She's really fascinating. Again, she's not overly explained, or there's not too much like, oh, I do this because of this. It's kind of, she's a very morally grey character, which I really enjoyed, and Kaine seems fascinated by her, falls in love with her, and she seems equally fascinated by him and his kind of dark, brooding, if we're talking about Frankenstein's monster, that's Kaine, isn't it? That is absolutely Kaine.
He is. That's well said.
Yeah, he's an earlier clone of Spider-Man who has a degeneration disease. However, a lot of this detail I'm going to tell you now isn't explicitly told in the books, but he's larger, he's stronger, and also he has a form of precognition because of his spider sense is actually stronger, so he can actually kind of see into the future, for a moment, or glimpses of the future because of that. And also him sticking to walls is also expanded upon, that he can leave this burning mark on your face called the Mark of Kaine, of course, which I think is cool. So there's some interesting elements to him. He has to wear a suit later on, his classic look, the look that the figure has. This suit is to stop him from his body from degenerating any further. So this is why he has this very strange, unusual look. I always thought as well that maybe the Undertaker's brother in the WWE, also called Kaine, was inspired by this Kaine, because I'm like, right, Dark Brother, mysterious past, wears a mask, doesn't talk very often, kind of a sort of similar look-esque. I was like, I think they're ripping him off a little bit. But again, I don't know this for sure. I don't know if that's the case, but I do feel like, because I think Kaine debuted late 97, so the Clone Saga was well on its way to being out and characters doing their thing, so I don't know if maybe that was an inspiration. I know that some wrestlers are big comic book fans, some of them go shouting around and clobbering time, things like that, Raven and CM Punk and all this, so I don't know, maybe. But, what did we think to Kaine? Again, this is a retroactive appearance. This isn't technically his first appearance, but it's the first appearance we're seeing of him. Go on, Mr. Holt Jr.
Well, I think Kaine is such another interesting character, that Frankenstein's monster character, that mysterious, multifaceted, villain-esque character, right? And to be wrapped up as another one of the Parker clones, another one of the Parker brothers. I always kind of liked Kaine. I liked that it was like good, bad, and other, right? You have the original Peter Parker doing his thing. You got Ben Reilly, who you don't know where he is, but then you've got Kaine in there that's just like the third unpredictable brother that is just out there hunting and killing. And he hates Ben so much. Yeah. Just that unbridled hate for Ben is just, I'm just like, where does that come from? And he's so impassioned, right? I think that's what really draws me to the Louise Kennedy and Kaine love story. It's just all about that unbridled passion and both of them having kind of an outlet for their grief and their strife, right? You can see in some of Louise Kennedy's characters that she's doing bad. She's doing bad. To a certain extent, she likes the bad that she's doing, but then there's a part of her that's like, she doesn't want to be lying to her partner. She doesn't want to be hurting a child, right? Kaine can't help himself. Every time he sees Ben Reilly, he just flies off the handle with unbridled rage. And both of them coming together, like, they find that peace in each other, and it becomes one of the most passionate and loving times of his life. I think I think Kaine even says it's the only time he's ever felt love. So of course it ends in tragedy, right? The tragedy that I think, just to the artwork, Romita does such a great job of depicting. I love the kind of raw, messy nature that Kaine is drawn in. That Ben Reilly at this time of his life, when he's still kind of getting lost, been lost, refinding himself as a hero, going through kind of the dark underbelly of Salt Lake City. I love how this is one where I think the art moves the story forward, where the art adds to the story and the darkness. And since we see Kaine masked and covered in his suit so much later, it was really kind of refreshing, really interesting to see Kaine as a dressed as a human, see him in his full face, his full glory, his full scars, and then learning and the creation of his power, of the mark of Kaine. I was just, the Kaine character is so interesting. And then much later, when you get to the Spider-Verse and they bring Kaine back, whose character name I can never remember except for Kaine. Again, it just adds to that layer of who Kaine is, why he does what he does, and of all the Spider-Man-esque characters, I think Ben Reilly and Kaine are two of the most interesting ones, and I love that we get to see this look back of where he came from and how tough his early years were.
Yeah. I think we need a Kaine Lost Years series, just his origin story, because I don't think we ever really get it. I don't think we've ever really had it. I mean, he's had comic book series about him, named after him, and I think they dig a little deeper here and there. I think the ghost of Louise Kennedy haunts him a little bit as well in a lot of those kind of later issues and things. But yeah, he's basically like a raw nerve in this. His whole body's like a raw nerve, and it's getting worse and worse. And he's, and he blames at this point, he thinks or believes, or it could be, that Ben is the original Peter Parker, which is kind of he caused all this. He caused his existence and his pain and everything that he's gone through. It's his fault, And we have Jacob Raven, who's this very, God-fearing Mormon cop who is trying his best. He knows Louise Kennedy's is a bent copper. She is a dirty cop. So we, even though he doesn't really want to question it. We also get the first appearance of Janine, or Janine Goodby, I think, or Elizabeth Tyne, I think she's called, who is another redhead. He's got a thing for redheads.
Another
Shocker.
Peter Parker, Dick Grayson similarity. They have a thing for redheads. Yeah,
absolutely. So, yes, and this is another thing which I feel like is another reference. So, you guys like your music. Are you familiar with Aerosmith's "Janie Got a Gun"?
Yeah.
Do you think this is inspired by that song? Do you think that song inspired that? Or I'm not even sure when the song came out, so I couldn't be sure. But I feel like the story in that song is almost word, because I read this on a child, but I heard the song later and I was like, that's just the same story. Again, very dark, very disturbing. Again, probably too young to be reading this again. But it's a story of an abusive father who molests his daughter, and she finally gets the courage to shoot him dead, and then is on the run for the rest of her life for that murder. And she's hiding out in Salt Lake City under a pseudonym, an alias. But Jacob Raven knows who she is, where she's from, what she's done, but doesn't report her until right at the end for some reason. Just, I'm going to come and get you now, even though I've had my son kidnapped. I've gone through all this. I've been beaten to hell. My wife has died in the explosion that blew up our house. But right now, right at this moment, I'm going to go arrest her.
Just perfect timing. Right.
Yeah. Again,
just perfect timing.
I was like,
bottom of my to-do list. Got to my to-do list today. Here we go.
Yeah, I guess I might as well tick that off while I'm here, and I'll confront my partner, and I'll do this and I'll do that. Yeah, it just all kind of,
because it's as you said, rushed too much. It needed issue 4.
Yeah, we definitely need an issue 4 just to kind of ease us in. But I think apart from like rushing it at the end, I think like Tony Hall Jr. has been saying, I think it's a really strong story with strong characters, strong motivations, and just wonderful character dynamics. And again, I love that like noirish Reign, that very Sin City style kind of Reign that Romita does, I think, so well. Again, yes, it doesn't always match up, and it's rough around the edges, but I kind of feel like this story is rough around the edges. I think it kind of almost fits to a degree.
No, I think that's right. I mean, it's just I feel like you always get judged by your own success. You're JR,
sure.
and I was just like,
absolutely.
What is this? This just felt sloppy. That's all. And again, we don't know. Clearly, they only got 3 issues done. Something happened. We don't know. I wasn't there. We weren't there. He was busy. Whatever. Let me take it way back. I love hearing everything you're saying. So let's take it way back, New Testament style.
Okay.
So let's pretend there's a creator and he makes people. And then those people, the original progenitors, they make one boy, and he's called Kaine. And everybody's like, good, well done, you, Kaine, you're the first. You're the best. Oh, but you know what? We're going to have a second one, and he's called Abel. But then the creator happens to like Abel and all this shit. Abel does better. Abel, you're better. Abel, you're nicer. Abel, you help people. The gifts that you bring are good. Kaine, you're an asshole. And so, I mean, God doesn't call Kaine an asshole, but that's how Kaine hears it. And then Kaine, what does he do? Kills his brother.
Sounds right. Yeah.
And is pissed forever.
True.
So I mean, I'm not to be so on the nose, but his name is literally Kaine.
Yeah,
he was
biblical.
the first.
Yeah.
Ben is the second clone, and he's the better clone. As we've spent all this time talking about Ben being the better clone, and so the rage that Kaine feels is literally biblical, right? Like it is like his name is Kaine. He is the first. He is mad.
He will be murdering people as we
he
go
will
along.
definitely be murdering people.
There'll be definitely some murders.
And then he'll be, sent out into the world. I mean, there's murders in this. People die in this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, which is, pretty it's not like Gwen died. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So it's not like people haven't died in Spider-Man before.
True.
But the fact remains, like, so to me, I look at this as that. Like, that's why this story is so good. I'm not a Christian. I'm not Jewish. This isn't my story. But I know the story as a work of art, as an allegory, the Cain and Abel story, and that the second son being prized more. Because, historically speaking, the first son is the one who's supposed to get everything. That's the way. Well, if you're the firstborn, the secondborn, there's like a whole joke in all of Jane Austen's novels, about which I know a thing or two, about the second son being sort of a meh. You're the second son. You're
all the
spare.
hand-me-downs.
Yeah, you're just like, you get, like in Mansfield Park, Tom Bertram, you get Mansfield Park and all the surrounding lands. Ed Bertram, you get a parish.
Yeah.
That's what, literally that's what it is. And like in Mansfield Park, the temptress, Mary Crawford, her whole thing is to try to get Ed Bertram to like push Tommy out of the way to take it. He's like, but I'm the second son. And she's like, no, it'll be fine. He's a loser. You be the first son. You can take him. You can usurp him. So historically, there's this whole thing, and that for whatever reason, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you're the firstborn, it doesn't mean you're special. It just means you were born. It means genetics and time and whatever. But so Cain, there's something like that's part of this story that I think works really well. But going back to the fact that this feels like a Wolverine, that's the same thing. Wolverine and Sabretooth story.
It's
the same
Shakespearean
story.
As well, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's Shakespearean. It's
brothers
the
who hate each
the bastard
other.
son.
Yeah,
it's the whole thing.
Yeah, even in the comedies, even in Much Ado, there's a bastard son who comes in and messes it up for everybody.
Oh, you bastard.
Yeah. So I do think there's something to that. So I think that's why the story works, because it's truly my struggle. I think it's great listening to you guys talk about it. I'm like, man, that story sounds awesome. Oh, I just read that story. I just feel like it. And so hear me out. It's such a shoehorn that this is a Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's in a Spider-Man book. Ben Reilly, he's not Scarlet Spider yet.
Yeah.
Caine isn't officially Caine yet. He's still like cool biker Caine.
Sons of Anarchy Caine.
Vengeance of Caine is the son of the Jackal's first album, Vengeance of Caine. Or that's his solo album when he leaves the son of the Jackal. He starts his solo album is the Vengeance of Caine. But like, these are these guys, right? These cool looking 90s guys with whatever. So I think that's just part of it. Like hearing you talk about it, and then as I'm reading it and I'm listening to you guys, and I had my whole Cain and Abel thing ready, to go, it just doesn't fit in a Spider-Man story. Not that it's a bad story, but like, and maybe that is part of this whole problem of the Clone Saga. Is it's really cool if you weren't fucking with Peter Parker. If you were just like, let's just have our own other world over here where there's a Cain, there's an Abel, there's these other characters, and there's this, there's the bastard son, and there's the vengeance and the mad scientist, and you have all of this, but with original characters. Yeah. Because then I think it's not a bad story, right, Tony? Sorry.
No, you're good. As you say that, I think that's why I like this series so much. I think that's why I like the Clone Saga so much. Because I was not like, I love Spider-Man. He's not the first character I think of when I think of Marvel, and I think of my favorite characters. But when I do think of Spider-Man, I immediately go to the Scarlet Spider. I immediately go to the Clone Saga, right? Because it's not your average Spider-Man story. I feel like it is so different and so complex. And yeah, it's just shoehorned into the series. It would make a great Elseworlds. It would make a great Marvel What If. But at the same time, I love that they just broke everything and were like, what if we just break Peter Parker? What if we just break this whole world? What if we just throw a chaos monkey like Caine in there that just hates these guys?
Chaos Monkey is the next album. Oh my God. I can't wait for us to start this band.
Up there with the grizzly. Up there with the grizzly, I think. Chaos Monkey.
Chaos Monkey.
Definitely.
I love it.
I mean, we were just talking about it, Tony. We were just talking about, Speed Racer and how that threw a wrench into Hollywood, and it was a big swing and it was a big miss and it broke things and it didn't do
the
well.
Speed Racer movie.
Yeah,
the
movie. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
you got to respect the big swing, and this is one of the biggest swings ever made. Love it or loathe it. They went, we're taking a risk, we're taking a gamble. They knew it was risky, they knew it was a gamble, but they still went for it because, frankly, they didn't have any other better ideas. So they were like, we're going to do this, we'll see how it goes.
But do you think, but hearing all that, everything you say is true. And of course, I will go to Speed Racer, hallowed be thy name. The Wachowski sisters, I bow to thee. What I'm saying, though, is all of what you're saying is true, and I like that you love it for those reasons, Tony. I love that you're like, let's break it off because you're not you're not like a Spider-Man guy, but like I am like Wolverine. I'm all in, and so this feels like this was a Wolverine and Sabretooth story. And so, but maybe that's it. Well, we've already done a Wolverine and Sabretooth story. What if we shoehorned it in here? And maybe that's it. And so maybe this is the problem, is that the reason that the Speed Racer movie tanked is because it was a risk for Hollywood. It was an old 1960s Japanese anime manga that nobody had ever heard of. They were going to try to make that a big budget movie right after The Matrix. But when they made The Matrix, nobody had seen that before. And they were like, what if we did philosophy and mind-bending shit and we put kung fu? They're like, and we had a woman and two men of color as our leads. Take that. And you're like, oh, we've got an Asian guy, we've got a black guy, we've got a woman. We're going to mess you up. The villain is the white guys. That's all the things we love about the Matrix movies, right? And so you're like, amazing. Let's do that. So they were breaking because there was nothing there. They didn't stick the Matrix in. They weren't like, what if we take Star Wars and put the Matrix in it? They're like, no, what if we just pretend Star Wars isn't, leave Star Wars alone? So that's what I think. This is such a great story. Like, I'm way more excited talking to you guys about it than I was reading it. But that's my thing. And so maybe, and so the question is that it? It was like it failed, not because it's bad writing or bad art or bad whatever. It failed because of where they put it, because they were too afraid to say, what if we made a really dark, like you said, Tony, Elseworlds noir private detective with superpowers? That would be super cool.
Well, we are getting that on Amazon. We are getting Spider-Man Noir. He is playing Ben Reilly. It's a Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Yeah.
And he's because Spider-Noir is Peter in the comic, but I like that he's going to be Ben Reilly.
I think they want to differentiate him just a little bit from, because again, it's Nick Cage. He's a bit older. He's a bit more grizzled. Again, very noir and everything. Yeah. So I think that's why they've chosen that name, because it's somewhat familiar yet different as well. So
sure,
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think
I'm looking forward to that too.
I think that's a big swing as well.
But it is a big swing, but that is very alternate universe. This is in the 616.
True.
So
true.
I don't know. I
get your point though. I get it's
what
trying
if we
to be
created a new series. Like sometimes you got like somebody had to make Spider-Man, somebody had to make Batman, somebody had to create a new character. Like Tony, you were just saying, when you were a kid and you and your dad would go to the comic shop and you'd find new characters that you loved. Like when I was reading Marv Wolfman and George Perez's Titans when I was a kid, think of all the new characters that popped up in Titans, right? Like Corey Starfire is still one of my favorites. She just like magically came from nowhere. Like Marv Wolfman made Jericho because he was like, or George Perez invented Jericho so Marv couldn't put words in his mouth. He's like, I was tired of drawing around all your words, so I'm going to make a silent character. And he's this, it's like there's like cool stuff that you can do, and like new characters can do new things. I mean, you came to the Scarlet Spider in the Warriors, right? You found him a different way. So he doesn't. What if he's not the Scarlet? What if he just still looks cool in that thing and he's got like Spider-Man adjacent? So I don't know. It just feels like we're so afraid to take a risk.
I get it.
Instead, we'd rather shoehorn something into the existing universe than just be like, let's make something new and make it good.
Because it is, I will agree. It is
That's
bending
my
over.
Rant over. Sorry,
that's all right. Don't worry, it's good. So I think it is bending over backwards to not be a Spider-Man story while still trying to be a Spider-Man story. I think that might be a failing as well. But I think where I was at the time, I enjoyed it. I liked the complexity of it, as Tony Hall Jr. says. I like it, but I can see the problems. Like, speaking of problems, I'm gonna go into some of the continuity things that I mentioned at the end, because we will need to recall this, and listeners will need to recall this, because I'm sure I'll bring them up again. So we do get the first mention of Seward Trainer, who is a scientist, doctor, and mentor of Ben Reilly, who helps him and puts his life together, helps him get those fake credentials for his teaching job. Again, he does appear. Technically, there's a first appearance technically, but again, this is the first time we're hearing about him. Okay, so Kaine knows that Louise Kennedy is a she sees she's a corrupt cop, and she kills him. She kills her. Sorry, Kaine kills Louise, and then for some reason picks up her gun, leaves the fingerprints on the gun, puts that down, then gives her the mark of Kaine, and then leaves. That
was strategic. The fingerprints on the gun he knew would lead back to Ben Reilly.
Okay, right.
That was strategic. It was part of it, that was that rage, that hatred. He wanted to frame Ben Reilly for that crime.
You say this, Tony, but the narration says otherwise. It says, I don't know why he did it. It must have been a reaction or something along those lines. So that made me feel like...
Maybe it's that part.
But, I mean, that's great. That's really good. Like, that would be good. But if the narration didn't say, I don't know why he did it, he was in a rage, he just picked up the gun and then dropped it, leaving the fingerprints. Yes, which will frame Peter and Ben for a murder later down the line, which will involve Jacob Raven, because he thinks Ben is responsible for the murder of Louise Kennedy because he was too fat to run up that hill and see the murder take place. So he just like, guess he did it, not the hulking, scarred monster who's angry at everybody. It can't be him. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Or maybe he thought it was, I don't know, Janine or somebody that he's been chasing. So remember that, because there is a storyline called The Trial of Peter Parker. So I wonder how that will come up.
We've got trials, we've got deaths,
we've got tribulations, you name it. We've got all sorts of stuff.
We've got lots of Ben Reilly, baddies of the week.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about those. Those are good.
Yes.
Those are really good stuff. When Ben is out and about in the cool costume that Tony Holt talked about.
Yes.
Those are
some
great stuff. Those are some great issues.
Got it coming up. We got it coming up.
I know.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited too.
I'm excited to go on this long, dark, less lonely road that Ben Reilly's on with you guys. I'm really excited. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm glad that we've reconvened, the Sons of the Jackal, to move forward and to look at this. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for doing this as well and joining me on this, because I've always wanted to kind of, again, I've not read the whole thing myself, so I'm interested to see what the journey's like, what are the pitfalls and the high points of such a famous comic book saga, and I'm sure all the listeners are looking forward to that as well. Before we finish, is there anything else we want to say about these storylines, characters, anything we've not already mentioned? Mr. Holt Jr., anything at all?
Ben Reilly forever.
Okay, that's it.
I want you to rip open your shirt and you've got the Scarlet Spider logo tattooed on there. That would be amazing.
He's got the hoodie.
I was this close. I almost went and got a sweatshirt.
Full chest.
And
really?
Tore the sleeves off.
Oh man.
I was this close to doing it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna.
That's amazing. It is the most '90s look ever. No,
we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go. So plenty of time.
Still time.
Yeah, this is the way to do it. This is why we I love to read. I read every day. I love to sit and think about the stuff I've read. But this is why stuff so thank you for doing this, Dan, because again, I was down a little bit on the Lost Years and stuff, but like I said, I mean, I had the whole Kaine and Abel stuff ready, but hearing you guys talk about it, not only did that make my Kaine and Abel theory, I think, sound better, but it also made me like this story more. So I just want to say I'm glad we could do this and having Ben Reilly.
We want your opinion, Tony. We want it good, bad. We want your passionate.
It's been great.
Passionate opinions.
Right, and I think, and I know, I mean, I've read some of the other stuff, and there's definitely some Carnage stuff to come, and that is not my favorite.
Well, you and Michael have to disagree on that.
I know.
I'm kind of here or there, depending on the story. To be honest,
we get there,
we'll see.
Yeah, but
we'll see.
But anyway, it's just and of course we need to get there. We will. But anyway, so I just want to say thank you both for having this and bringing me the joy and getting me all excited about art. I need it.
Yes, so we've got Power and Responsibility next, and there's some kind of cameos we'll talk about a little bit, when we didn't know who it was that was returning, seemingly had connections to everybody, and then I think we're doing the Exile as well, or Return of the Exile, I think
Exile Returns, I think is what
Exile
it's called.
Returns, sorry,
yeah.
you are correct,
Yep.
and the Exile Returns, which will see the Scarlet Spider go against a villain that Peter Parker has never soundly defeated. So can the Scarlet Spider defeat one of his top arch villains where Spider-Man has never, ever done it? We'll have to see. And we'll have some very strange characters turn up. Some very unusual, more travelers, let's say. More travelers that will be joining us in the next one. So hopefully next month we're going to return to the Page of Apocalypse. We'll see if that happens. If not, we will reconvene here for another Clone in the Dark. But thank you guys. This has been amazing. Better than I could ever anticipate. And the future looks bright. Maybe not. Well, it depends on the. It will depend on. Yeah, for us it looks bright. For Spider-Man, Ben, Kaine, Mary Jane, especially Aunt May, and other characters, it might not look so shiny and bright. But thank you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, checking us out. Go and check out that original podcast me and Tony did to catch you up on some of the continuity stuff that we will be again talking about in the future. But the Clone Tones absolutely delivered, and yeah, it's been wonderful. And we will get stuck in and tangled up in that web of Ben Reilly's again next time. See you then.